What's up, everybody? This is Tim from Arm Wrestling Secrets, and today the debate continues. I wanted to talk again about table time or weights, part 2. Okay, so we're going to continue the discussion on table time or weights. Okay, so remember in the first video I discussed table time or weights, and I kind of tended to say that, hey, okay, if you've been in the sport for a while and you technically know what you're doing on the table, I suggest for tournament success, remember for tournament success, I'm not talking about horsing around in the backyard or at the barbecue, okay? I'm talking about tournament success. For tournament success, my opinion of table time or weights is this, and I'm just going to come at it from a different perspective today because since it's part 2, I'm not going to say the same thing I did in part 1, okay? In part 1, I was discussing the difference in table time or weights, and my position being that if you have been arm wrestling for a while, you will be a lot more competitive at the tournament if you focus on your weaknesses and you build them into strengths and you make your other strengths super strengths in a weightlifting capacity, with the assumption that you're doing all of the motions and the exercises in the correct range of motion. You're working on the pronation and the supination and the cupping or hooking. Okay, you're working on your radial flexion or your rising strength. Okay, all of the little things, your fingers, your hands. If you're doing that in a way that's going to make you competitive at the arm wrestling table and you're working all the strengths that are going to go into the technique that you're going to use, my position was that the strength training, the weight training, is something that will benefit you quite a bit more at the tournament. I do not think, and this is leading into the part 2 of this, okay? I do not think that if you're just table time training, like John Brzenk does now, as you've probably heard, okay? If you're just table training, okay, no, I do not think that's gonna make you a more competitive arm wrestler at the tournament as opposed to somebody who lifts weights really hard and knows how to arm wrestle, okay? So remember those two things, okay? One of two things in this video. This is what we're distinguishing, table time or weights, okay? And I'm not saying, I think there's very few people that just do table time or just do weights. When you're an arm wrestler, obviously the question is about mixing those two and trying to find the right balance between those two for maximum results, right? For maximum results at the competition, okay? So, or in maximum efficiency. And so I'm coming from a position where I'm thinking a whole lot of one more and a whole lot less of another, okay? So this is the part 2 of it, and I wanted to kind of get into today. Okay, let's just take an example, and I think this is interesting. Okay, let's just make it easy, and let's just take one person, and let's take you. Let's take you for the example. You are the example we're going to use, okay? And I don't know anything about you. Let's just say you're somebody and you've never arm wrestled before. Okay, and this is how I want to make my point, because it applies to everybody it applies to everyone if you've been arm wrestling for a while too, but let's just take it from the beginning. Let's say you never arm wrestled before. Okay, let's say we have 3 years to prepare for a tournament. Okay? One of you, let's say since there's 2 different scenarios, we'll take you in one scenario and you in another scenario. So let's take you in one scenario where we're taking 3 years, okay? Let's say we focus on table time pretty much only, and then we work in a little weightlifting in between when you're not sore, but we do pretty much table time the entire 3 years until the tournament. That's you doing primarily table time. Okay, then there's another you, same body. Okay, so same exact height, same weight, same hand, same arm. That makes it fair, exactly, right? Same body. Okay, now let's say instead of table time for 3 years leading up to the same tournament, let's say, this is my opinion of what would be the correct thing to do. You've never arm wrestled. Let's say we take the first year and we arm wrestle as much as your arm can take, and then we work in a lot of the correct strength training as well. Okay, we do pretty much what you're doing with in the other scenario. We're learning how to arm wrestle. We need to learn how to arm wrestle. Okay, we need to learn all the technical and tactical stuff. Let's say we do that for a year. Okay, now in this scenario, I want to get extreme. Okay, now let's say in this scenario, in the weightlifting scenario, okay, or with the second scenario, now we go for the next 2 years instead of arm wrestling. Like the first guy, the first time we did 3 years of table training straight through, and to use that as an example with a little bit of weightlifting. Now in this other example, okay, let's say we had the same 3 years, we do 1 year of technical arm wrestling. Then we spend the next 2 years ferociously strength training in the weight room, all of the weaknesses that we have, okay, that you have in this case, okay? We work the pronation, and we work the supination, we work the hooking, and we work it really, really hard in a really organized fashion in the weight room, okay? So we're not doing the same thing every single day. Like when you're arm wrestling, a lot of times, let's say you arm wrestle twice a week. I don't know anybody that arm wrestles more than 2 times a week. If you're arm wrestling 3 or 4 or 5 times a week, okay, your arms really gotten conditioned to arm wrestling, but the average person can't take that much, okay? And that's kind of coming to the root of the video, is overuse of the arm being the primary underlying problem that people are having when it comes to table time or weights, okay? So I wanted to take those, take a look back at the two, those two scenarios, okay? My position is that the person who knows how to arm wrestle and then took 2 years getting really strong in their arm wrestling muscles will beat the same person who took 3 years just table training and got all of the technique and all of the tact. So technically, with the movements and stuff, you who just did the table training for 3 years, you will be much more technically savvy. You'll probably be much more smooth on the table. Okay, I agree with that totally. Okay. You'll probably have a lot more movements, and they'll be much more coordinated and much more smooth. Okay, now I would definitely agree with you on that, and I agree that would be the case. Now, you're taking on, in this case, it's you versus you, just to make it fair. Okay, now you're taking on the person. What about you, the same person who has had at least 1 year of really solid technical arm wrestling? Okay, you've had 3 years, but the other person has had 1 year, but they're way stronger than you. Okay, and what I'm saying, and of course the point of my first video, is that I think you're going to get way stronger if you focus on the weights a lot more than you focus on trying to make table time your primary means of getting strong. And so I'm coming from a position I think is going to be very contrary to a lot of arm wrestlers that are out there. I'm suggesting, once again, that once you know how to arm wrestle, if you want to be a competitive arm wrestler at the next tournament, focus on getting stronger by using weights in a organized fashion. Okay, and like I said, you've seen a lot of the videos I've already been putting out. I'm going to be putting out a lot more on exactly what exercises to do and in what direction and intensity that's going to help make you strongest. Okay, so you can start applying those type of exercises right away. But my suggestion, and the whole point of this video, is that I think that the person who knows how to arm wrestle and focuses a lot more on the strength training and training all the strengths for arm wrestling will beat the person who just works out at the table every single time, assuming those two bodies are the same. Okay, so remember that I always use the term building your machine. So remember, when you're going up to arm wrestle somebody, you're a machine, they're a machine. The stronger you become, your machine is becoming stronger. Okay, now you can learn all the tricks in the book, and this is what I've said before about watching arm wrestling videos. It's easy to watch a bunch of arm wrestling videos and think, I know what to do now. Okay, now knowing what to do, like watching my Arm Wrestling Secrets video series, it goes over all of the different tactical and technical decisions you can make in an arm wrestling match for the most part. Okay, but what it doesn't do is doesn't make you stronger by knowing that information. Okay, is that, remember, those movements will only be usable for you if you're stronger than your opponent is in most of those positions. And in the working muscles of arm wrestling, the pronation and the radial flexion, the supination, all of the different pressures that come with arm wrestling, okay, the stronger you are in those will overcome technical abilities on the table after a certain point. If somebody's really strong and they don't know how to arm wrestle, and you know how to arm wrestle and you aren't really strong, you have a huge advantage. But those things really start to balance out, okay, once that really strong guy starts to know how to arm wrestle. I mean, you could teach a guy just a few basic moves, and he's suddenly a lot more dangerous than he was even 5 minutes ago. And you guys know what I mean. If you've taught somebody a few moves and suddenly you're like, well, okay, this person's almost beating me now. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So that's my official position on the weights versus table time issue. Is just to cap the video is, remember that you make Focus on making your machine stronger. You only have a certain amount of time, right? We all only have a certain amount of time, and you can only spend the whole point of the video and videos of in terms of efficiency for table time versus weights. And my position is that people are spending way too much time on the table trying to pull off fancy tricks and work on moves and things like that, and they're pulling really hard and they're doing damage to their arm, which costs them a lot of recovery time, so they can't focus on getting really strong in the gym. And I'm saying, do the table time, keep that up, but go really light so there's no torque. Go through the movements if you have to, and then focus all of your real energy by going 100% in the gym. And that's my opinion. I'll see you guys later.